Hello, my name is Happiness Uwase, and I'm the host of the Bridge Meets Today. I am joined with 3 spectacular Bridge to Rwanda fellows working for a consultancy firm here in Kigali. I will start off with the only man that we have in the room today.
Sure. No, thank you so much, Happiness, for having us. We appreciate being here. My name is Steven. I went to Georgetown University. I graduated last year during the pandemic, sadly. And I came back and I've been working at Dalberg as an analyst.
Yeah, thanks Happiness for having us. My name is Christelle. I graduated also last year and studied at Yale University, and now back home working at Dalberg with Steven and Diana as an analyst. Yeah.
Thank you, Christelle, for introducing me. But yeah, so my name is Diana. Thank you, Happy, for having us. I'm the oldest out of all of them. I graduated 2 years ago from Columbia University, and I'm an associate consultant at Dalberg now.
Great. Oh, thank you. So you're online consulting. Some of you graduated last year during a pandemic. Walk me through what attracted you to consulting. What was the phases between being nervous about graduation and what is going to be next, and really landing a job in a consulting? It's not an easy one. What happened, especially, let's start with those that had the toughest time last year graduating virtually. So you can share, anybody can start.
I think overall it was a lot of uncertainty, especially graduating towards only the beginning of the pandemic. So we really didn't understand what was happening. We weren't sure that our jobs weren't gonna be revoked, like our jobs offers. So we were so for me, I was very uncertain about it, but I was also very lucky to have applied a bit early on and got the offer at Dalberg. And to answer your question on consultancy, I think for me, it wasn't very clear, this is what I want to do with my life. It was more so that I really wanted to get development experience, and I knew that doing it in Africa made more sense than anywhere else. And I was very lucky because Dalberg seemed like a great place to work, and consulting also was going to be a way for me to just explore and decide if it's something that I can do long term or if it's something that can also expose me to other areas.
Yeah, just like Christelle, it wasn't a clear path. I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. So it's one thing to be in college and then you're studying. So I did finance and I thought I was going to do investment banking. But then I didn't love it from the outside. So I was like, I want to love it from the inside. But then I was lucky. I got an internship at Dalberg that summer, and I did not know what to expect. Only, that experience that was going to help me make an informed decision. So interning there that summer really exposed me to a lot of different aspects in consultancy, and that's when I made a decision to come back and work at Dalberg. And the good thing with that is that I still don't know what I want to, kind of specifically, and I think that's the beauty of consulting.
Yeah, and I think to really go off what they said, the uncertainty is always there, especially when you're in school and you're supposed to explore and kind of figure out what you want to do. So for me, the way I landed into consulting, I knew exactly what I wanted to do, but it was not specifically consulting. I did sustainable development, and I knew that I wanted to work in social impact, but also branch off from the traditional working in an NGO or charity work and all that. So for me, Dalberg was literally the best intersection of you're in it's private sector, but at the same time, you're working with a multitude of different clients in government and in non-profit. So for me, the consulting was attractive because it was the best way to get the most exposure in the development sector. So that's how I applied to Dalberg and really found myself doing consulting until now.
Great. I hear exposure, I hear impact, working on multiple projects. So correct me if I'm wrong. I know majority of you as well have written part of your ACEs to get into school, impact, right? Do you feel like you are doing that right now? Is there any examples? You don't have to disclose everything about work, but is there any examples that have happened in work that you really feel like they've been significant, like towards what your overall goal was initially when you went into school as well?
See, I think for me, like, impact is a big word, right? And I think once you graduate, you realize that the best impact you can have is investing in your own professional growth, because we can debate about whether, like me working right now in a consulting firm, really learning, because I didn't have any prior experience to consulting, is having like an impact on the Rwandan economy, like we wrote in those essays, But for me, I think the more I focus on my professional growth, what I want to do, what I want to learn, like for me, that's the, I guess like that's the biggest form of impact. It's like I'm learning about myself, what I want to do, what I don't want to do, and whether the next thing I continue working in consulting, I start a business, I work in another private entity, like I hope, the impact is progressive, but I hope I grow, and as I grow that I can contribute to society, but it's become more of a personal thing, like how can I, create the most impact by investing in myself and my professional growth.
I don't know if you listen to Simon Sinek. He talks about millennials and like wanting to kind of create such big impact, but we don't know what impact is. I'm less than a year into the workforce, right? so I'd be lying if I was like, yeah, I feel like I'm creating some sort of impact. But then I try to see it differently, which is not from just a professional aspect, but outside that. Like, am I creating an impact as a human being, right? And some days I do feel like I'm creating an impact, because especially when, let's say in consulting, you suggest something and then you see that being put into effect, like you feel really happy. But it's not that everything's gonna be put into effect, and that's when you start feeling maybe I'm not really contributing as much. But then I think something I'm still learning, which is I'm not trying to limit my life into like this whole consulting thing. So trying to go into it as a human being, seeing clients not as clients, but as fellow human beings. Impact could be like something as small as that, building that kind of bond. So I'm trying to see it from that other perspective, as opposed to, developing the whole country, causing that sort of impact, it builds up.
Yeah, and to add to what Steve and Diana have said, I think for me it's been also realizing how like your voice matters anywhere. It doesn't matter where you are, it can be in the US, can be here, but realizing that whenever you are at a table and you're discussing ideas, sometimes even voicing out a concern, or like if it's a lens you have to apply, if you're passionate about gender and being like, why are women not included in this like framework that you've designed? So sometimes it's really like applying your voice when you have a chance, wherever you are, and it can take a lot of ways. Like you can be like on the street seeing someone being harassed and being like, this is not okay. So I feel like for me, impact has also sort of merged into the personal and more or less on the like, yeah, this is like a huge impact on the continent or in Africa or like, I don't know, in Rwanda or so on, yeah.
At least with Dalberg, is that at the end of the project, you get to reflect on these things, right? If let's say you're passionate about gender and you try to push for that to, for the project to put in gender lens, you'll be like, we didn't do as much as we could have. And the good thing, the farm listens. And I think that's what makes me feel happy about working this line of work, because your voice is heard, like Christelle has mentioned. So I think that does really help.
You guys are so humble, You're very, very humble as well. Your work that you're doing right now in Dalberg, in addition to what you guys said, also creates impact. And very successful projects within Dalberg have impacted whoever client that you're serving, whether government or the private, in a way that this business has been able to channel down to someone somewhere in a different part. But with your analysis, your report, so you are still impacting in a larger scale as well, in addition to the personal one. So I want to applaud you with a bitoir applause. Yeah, I want to have one last question around work before we get into the social one. So what made you come back really after graduation? And if you look back, right, you all said that you didn't see yourself in consulting initially. I'm very sure your 10-year-old self had a dream of being a president or something else. You can tell us about that. So what advice would you give to that ambitious 10-year-old or 18, 19-year-old who went to university right now, as some students as well are graduating? What kind of advice would you give to that? All those that are going to school, what kind of advice would you give them? And also just give us a little bit of what motivated you to pursue careers back home, really. Yeah.
Oh, I got a job, so I came back. Honestly, yeah, my personal experience is I got a job that I loved, that I felt like I would be working, I'd be close to my family, I would, the pay was good, right? And that's something I wanted out of a job, right? I got all my boxes were ticked, so I really chose to come back for that. But then even seeing that kind of growth, kind of balance that I have being back home, because I haven't been home, because high school I was in Uganda, then I went to the US. I noticed that I really wasn't close to my family and we didn't have that kind of bond. And for me, returning, that was the best thing, right? So those are the main factors why I returned. But looking back, definitely, I don't regret anything. It's more of going with your gut and, trying to do your best and, try to manage expectations around you. I think that does really help for you to make the most out of your life, because it's not about all of this. It's about how do you make life better? How do you make people around you better? Yeah, that's what I go with.
I'm very inspired, Steve. What are you doing in consulting? You should just be a motivational speaker. Kidding. But yeah. Okay. What motivated me to come back home? For me, it was really my career choice. So context, I did science in high school, physics, chemistry, math. And then when I was in British Rwanda, I was okay, I know I can do this well, I can do math, I can do physics, but what's important to me, I realized it was discussing big issues like economics, socioeconomic issues like access to public health and all these things. So instantly I knew that's what I really enjoyed doing. And so I quickly switched my focus from environmental science to sustainable development. And I literally remember in the first year, I kind of had a feeling that I was going to come back home or Africa, because for me, that's where the debates were happening, and that's what I saw myself doing and talking about on a daily basis in my work. So literally my first year, I applied to all these internships, especially if you go to a school like where I went to school, the typical successful careers are, you hear about it, investment banking, consulting, computer science. Most people just go in it just because it's you'll be successful in it. And I did all those things, but I really didn't feel any happiness, so to speak, even when I was doing it. Your name. And so it just turned out that every summer I would come home, do something that I really liked. And in my final year, I was okay, I'm going to just apply to different things, but if I get a job home, I'm definitely going to come back, especially in the field that I want to work in. And so that's how it worked out, and I ended up coming. And I guess Steve was saying, a motivational speaker. It's a gut feeling at the end of the day. You're scared. You're man, I'm leaving all this success behind me. I could be earning so much money here. My friends are going to be doing something different, but it always turns out well, because I truly don't regret coming back, and I've been happy career-wise and also being close to my family and creating connections here.
Yeah, for in terms of why I chose to come back here, I think, as Diana and Steve have mentioned, it was a gut feeling, but it was also realizing that there are things that people tell you in terms of checking boxes, you should have worked at these places, you should have stayed in the US 3 years and like got that experience. But I think owning your own trajectory is also part of it, like knowing that there's possibility beyond the check boxes that are always like assigned to you, like this is what you need to tick off to live a good life or so on. So I think that realizing that there's a possibility for me to also like shape my experience and be open to change and possibility as well.
Great. You've all mentioned coming back home, a gut feeling coming back home. Coming back home comes with huge expectations, right? Change of culture. You've been living alone, in the US, now coming back living with family. You've been doing different fun things in the US, coming back here and adjusting. Just give us some tea about the social life, social life in Kigali. What do you do for fun? As I sip my tea, as you guys can see, good tea, Rwanda tea. So give us some tea. What do you guys do for fun? Have some of you moved out? How have you gone about it? For females, I guess it's very hard to move out. I'm just assuming.
The narrative.
So I'm curious to hear about how you've navigated that.
Yeah, so you mentioned expectations. There is expectations from family, there's expectations from, I don't even know, just the world, right? but also like something people forget is your own expectations, right? You've been in a different country, you've changed tremendously. The whole culture thing of like being so reserved, it's different, and you have your own opinion. So I think that's also something people always forget, and it's huge, right? So with living with parents, I did enjoy coming back and living with parents because they're cooking for me, as opposed to a school where everything was just I had to hustle and figure it out. But then yeah, I did get to move out like you mentioned, but still I moved out with my brother, so I'm still with family. And yeah, breaking it to my parents, they're really shocked that I personally was ready to move out. But I think that also showed them that their expectations, also like my expectations, also kind of contributed to that, because I've been living by myself, so why can't I be by myself even in the country? But then as long as you notice that there is that family aspect, I have to make time to go see my parents, because that there is that expectation, but also it's something I treasure, and that's my expectation as well. So I try to meet that as. I think that's an important factor that people tend to forget a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, for me, I'm still figuring things out, honestly, in terms of like where even relationships with my extended family, like I feel like coming back has, it's like you are uprooted in a way, and you come back and you have to reroot yourself, and you have to sort of recreate those relationships. And so I'm still trying to like figure out, how do I build relationships when I'm here? Who are my friends? Who do I reach out to? So it's a work in progress for me, and learning a lot. Yeah, but still in progress. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think it's been easy, honestly, like adjusting, and it's not even just adjusting, it's like, you're moving back, and like Steve mentioned, you've changed, but also I think when I came here for short periods of times during, summer holidays, we'd be like, it's just 3 months, I can, live by the rules of society, of my family, but then you realize, gosh, I'm here for infinity, not infinity, but for a long time. So you're like, I really have to listen to myself, like really invest in doing what I want, and sort of like, so like opening up that channel. And so like for me, I think it's been a lot of like pushing back respectfully on many things that maybe I don't agree with, or doing things the way someone wants me to do them, etc., etc. But eventually, like I think you find your routine. Because for me, my biggest challenge when I moved back is like, how do I find that routine that I like, that I kind of have my own life here? And I think I'm getting there, like, having having like a close group of friends that I can always find, and setting expectations with my family, like, when I make time for them or when I'm doing my own thing. Yeah, but it's something you just like learn along the way. I don't think there is like a straight, like a magic wand where you're like, yeah, I'm coming in, it's easy, like, yeah.
I think that's very, very important. A community, relying on a community as well, by the people that have done it to help you and support you. Do it respectfully as well. These are our parents that we're trying to push back these kind of ideas or introduce these new ideas. Okay, one last fun question. Fun thing that you all like to do or you have done so far since you returned or you're planning to do in the next couple of weeks or days. Just share with us.
I sleep for fun. Honestly, yeah, I noticed that sleep is overrated. I was that kid who never used to sleep in the afternoon. But I love watching movies. I love playing video games, and I own it. Weekends, I'll try to read sometimes, but it's been a while. But also, like spending time with friends, I think is big. Spending time with family. I would say 85% of my weekends, like I'm with family. Which is big for me. So I think, I'm thinking of starting to travel, getting into travel, like basically it's continuing traveling. Because at school I used to do that and now it's become a thing, right?
Where are you going?
I think I'm going to Zanzibar, though I try to keep it very low key. But that's something I think, it's not about just like traveling. I think being exposed to like a lot of different things, and I'm not a big traveling kind of person. But then when I started doing that, I realized I was learning so much. And if I could, then why not, right? Before you start settling down, and I got advice that before you settle down, enjoy your life, right? Like do all these things, because once you really start settling down, then that changes everything about your life. Yeah, so that's what I do for fun, but there's a lot of things I'm still trying to explore.
Yeah, can you take me as your hand luggage to Zanzibar?
Yeah, for sure. I'll think about it.
Yeah, what do you do, Christelle?
Oh, wow. So I spend a lot of time with family as well. So I have a little brother, so I've been trying to like get him to try stuff. So just taking him out to do things. I feel like when I was here in high school, I was very much an indoors person. I never went out. I just went to school and came back. But I feel like I don't take here for granted anymore as I used to. And I know I can like explore places, go to galleries or just like cafes, try them out. And sometimes also I really love running, and it's not something I've always done. I'm not a sportsy person at all. But I think ever since the pandemic started, I think I've kept a routine of like getting outside, doing a run, and that has been really great for me. So and movies as well, and reading sometimes.
Yeah. Well, I do a lot. So especially during the pandemic and after the pandemic, I find myself like brunching a lot. So I love food. So like Saturdays, Sundays, that's what mostly I do. But I'm also the kind of person who really loves my personal time. So like on a Sunday, you'll find me like deep in a show and far from people. I also love traveling. I've done a bit of traveling here in Rwanda, try to get out when I can.
Where's your favorite part in Rwanda?
It's in, that part, like Kurenze Musanze.
It's fine, we can speak in Rwanda.
No, like Tomalen's house. Like, I was only there like...
Yes, this is Burera.
Burera.
The top
I think that's
there.
the most beautiful part of Rwanda. But in terms of the traveling I've done by myself here, Karongi. Yeah.
Karongi is beautiful, my favorite too. I think I took our country for granted as well until I studied abroad. I'm like, I think my country is the most beautiful country in the world. So I don't know if you agree, but thank you so much for your time. And thank you for everyone who is watching. We're the Bridge Career Services. If you want to learn more about young professionals and especially diaspora returning to Rwanda, follow us on all our social media and continue to tune in on YouTube. for these kind of videos. Thank you.